There's a strange moment that happens around $100,000. You don't celebrate the way you thought you would. You don't feel rich. You don't feel safe. You feel exposed. Because for the first time in your life, the number is big enough to matter and big enough to lose. Up until now, saving felt mechanical. Every dollar was effort. Every deposit was sacrifice. The goal was clear: get to six figures. But nobody tells you what happens after you get there. Because $100,000 isn't just a milestone, it's a psychological turning point. It's the first time your money can actually grow without you. At 8% annual returns, $100,000 generates $8,000 per year on its own. That's $667 a month, without overtime, without a raise, without you doing anything. And that's exactly where people mess up. When your money starts working, your brain changes. Some people get scared, some people get ambitious, some people get comfortable. All three reactions are dangerous, and the decisions made in the first year after crossing $100,000 determine something most people never realize until it's too late. Whether that $100,000 becomes $1,000,000 or becomes the most expensive plateau of your life. Stay with me, because what destroys momentum at $100,000 doesn't look reckless, it looks responsible, and that's why it's so hard to see. The first mistake doesn't look like greed, it looks like caution. You work too hard for that $100,000 to watch it drop 20% in a bad year, so you move it somewhere safe, a savings account, a money market, maybe short-term CDs. It feels mature, it feels like you're protecting what you built. But at 3% inflation, $100,000 quietly loses purchasing power every year. At 4% in a high-yield account, you're barely staying flat. You're not protecting the money, you're freezing it, and frozen money doesn't compound. $100,000 invested at 8% for 15 years becomes about $317,000. Left sitting at 3 to 4%, closer to $155,000. That's a $160,000 difference, created entirely by fear. The risk you're avoiding, volatility, is temporary. Markets recover. The risk you're accepting, stagnation, is permanent. Those lost years of compounding never come back. The person who keeps $100,000 safe for a decade isn't being prudent. They're paying a six-figure fee to avoid temporary discomfort. And that fee is invisible, which is why it never feels like a mistake. People think the biggest mistake at $100K is losing money. It's not. It's preventing it from moving, because compounding only works when you let it breathe. But safety isn't the only trap. Sometimes the problem isn't fear, it's intelligence. Hitting $100,000 changes how you see yourself. You start thinking, I figured it out. You feel more sophisticated. You consume more finance content. You start hearing about higher return opportunities, crypto, options, private equity, AI stocks. You don't want 8% anymore. You want 20%. And suddenly your simple index strategy feels basic, too basic for someone who built six figures. Most people don't lose their first $100K because they're reckless. They lose momentum because they start trying to be exceptional. Dauber research shows the average investor underperforms the S&P 500 by several percentage points annually, not because the market fails, because behavior fails. They buy after spikes, they sell during dips, they chase themes, they time entries. On a $100,000 base, underperforming by just 2% annually over 30 years costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, not from fraud, from ego. And the cruelest part, every deviation feels like improvement. Every new strategy feels like an upgrade. But the portfolio doesn't measure intention, it measures interruption. And interruption at this stage echoes for decades. The market doesn't reward intelligence, it rewards consistency. And consistency feels boring once you feel smart. But there's a trap even more dangerous than fear and more subtle than ego. It's the one that looks like you've earned it.
This one is the quietest, and because it's quiet, it's the most expensive. You don't invest recklessly. You don't hide in cash. You just relax. I made it to six figures. I'm doing well. So you ease up. Stop tracking expenses as tightly. Upgrade the apartment. Travel a little more. Let your savings rate drop from 30% to 18%. Nothing dramatic, but something structural changes. Before 100K, you were hungry. After 100K, you feel stable. And stability kills urgency. Psychologists call this the arrival fallacy, the illusion that reaching a milestone lifts pressure permanently. Your brain treats 100K as a destination instead of a checkpoint. Your baseline resets upward. Your discipline softens. 5 years later, you check your accounts, you're at $135,000. You didn't collapse, you didn't gamble it away, you just stopped accelerating. $100,000 turned into a ceiling instead of a launch pad. Not destruction, dilution. Not failure, friction. The slow replacement of momentum with comfort. And the tragedy isn't that you lost money, it's that you lost time. Time at the stage where compounding is about to accelerate is worth more than any dollar. Now comes the part most videos never explain properly. What actually turns 100K into 1 million? It's not a secret stock, it's a structure. Here's what most people don't fully grasp about $100,000. It's not just a bigger number, it's a different machine. Before 100K, your effort creates the growth. After 100K, growth starts creating growth. At 8%, $100,000 generates $8,000 per year. Not life-changing yet, but watch. At $200,000, it generates $16,000 per year. At $500,000, $40,000. At $1 million, $80,000 per year. That's a salary, generated entirely by a machine you built with patience. The first 100K feels slow because you're pushing the boulder uphill. After 100K, the slope changes. Every additional 100K arrives faster than the last, not because you work harder, but because the base is larger. If you continue investing $2,000 per month at 8%, the second 100K arrives significantly faster than the first, the third faster than the second. By the fourth and fifth, the portfolio generates more growth than your contributions. Compounding is not linear, it accelerates, but only if uninterrupted. Every mistake we discussed, safety, ego, comfort, interrupts the slope right when it starts tilting in your favor, right when the machine is about to do the heavy lifting. The mistake isn't failing, it's breaking momentum at the exact moment momentum was about to become your greatest asset. But momentum alone isn't enough, because at 100K, the game becomes deeply psychological. Here's the part nobody talks about. $100,000 is lonely. You can't talk about it. If you mention it to friends who have less, it sounds like bragging. If you mention it to people who have more, it sounds naive. If you mention it to family, it becomes expectation or obligation. So you carry it quietly. This number that took years of sacrifice, and there's nobody to share the weight with. And the weight is real. $100,000 is heavy because you feel responsible for it. Heavy because you're terrified of losing it. Heavy because you did everything right and still don't feel the peace you expected. You thought 6 figures would feel like a rival. Instead, it feels like standing at the edge of something, unclear whether you're about to climb higher or fall back. Here's the line that makes this painfully specific. You did what they told you to do. You saved, you sacrificed, you delayed gratification for years, and now you have $100,000 and you still wake up on Monday with the same tension, the same calculations, the same quiet fear that one wrong move could erase what took a decade to build. That's the emotional cost of crossing 6 figures. Not celebration, vigilance. Not freedom, responsibility. And the loneliness of knowing nobody around you fully understands the pressure of protecting something you built entirely alone. If that resonates, what comes next is how you turn that pressure into structure.
Getting to 100K requires discipline. Turning 100K into 1 million requires identity. Before 6 figures, you're a saver. After 6 figures, you must become an allocator. Savers think about effort. How much can I put in? Allocators think about structure. Is my system optimized to run without me? Let me show you what the shift feels like. Monday morning, the market dropped 2% yesterday. The old you would open the app immediately, feel the knot, maybe move something just to be safe. The allocator version registers it, acknowledges it, and makes coffee. Because the system was built for this. The contributions are automated. There is nothing to do. That nothing to do is the hardest part.
It feels like negligence. It feels like the responsible thing would be to act. But acting is what kills compounding at this stage. Every adjustment resets momentum. Every reaction interrupts the machine. The allocator's greatest skill isn't picking investments, it's tolerating inaction while the system does what it was designed to do. You stop checking daily. You stop reacting to volatility. You treat the portfolio like a machine. Machines don't need your anxiety to function. They need your absence. The people who cross 100K and never scale beyond it are the ones who never made this shift. They saved well, but never learned to let the structure run. If you want 100K to become 1 million, remove yourself from the equation. Not because you're incompetent, because you're human. Automation isn't just convenience, it's a psychological defense system. Every time you manually decide to invest, you create a decision point, and every decision point is an opportunity for fear, ego, or comfort to intervene. Maybe I should wait until the market settles. Maybe I should put less this month. Maybe I should try that new strategy. Each thought is reasonable. Each one, acted upon, interrupts compounding. Automation eliminates the decision point entirely. The money moves before your brain can interfere. Contributions happen on the first, whether you're confident or scared, whether the market is up or down. The structure: auto-invest on a fixed date. Route half of every raise directly into investments before it touches checking. Increase contributions annually, automatically. Then do the hardest thing. Leave it alone. Not for a week, for years. Check quarterly. Rebalance annually. Between those moments, do nothing. The people who reach $1 million aren't constantly adjusting. They're consistently feeding and walking away. Structure doesn't have bad days, doesn't read headlines, and doesn't get scared during corrections. 100K is where you stop proving you can save. It's where you prove you can stay boring. And boring at scale is the most powerful financial strategy that exists. 5 years after $100,000, 2 versions of you exist. Version 1 kept too much in cash, tweaked investments when anxiety spiked, relaxed savings rate after a promotion, upgraded lifestyle just enough to feel justified. 5 years later, $135,000, maybe $150,000. No real acceleration. Version 2 automated contributions, ignored noise, invested through corrections that felt terrifying, kept lifestyle stable. 5 years later, $220,000, maybe $250,000. Same income, same intelligence, same market, different behavior. Now fast forward 20 years. $100,000 plus $2,000 per month at 8% becomes roughly $1.3 to $1.5 million. Reduce the return by 2% or interrupt contributions or let lifestyle creep slow momentum, you land closer to $850,000. $500,000, not from catastrophe, from small deviations after 100K. This is why 100K is dangerous. It feels like safety, but it's leverage. Small behaviors have amplified consequences. Before 100K, mistakes are small because the base is small. After 100K, mistakes scale, and scaled mistakes cost 6 figures. That's the part nobody warns you about.
Reaching $100,000 proves you can delay gratification. Staying disciplined after proves you can delay ego. And delaying ego is harder because gratification is external, but ego feels like identity. Most people don't blow up their first 6 figures. They dilute it. They soften. They get comfortable. They get clever. And momentum quietly dies. Not in a crash, but in a drift. But the ones who treat 100K like a machine, not a trophy, experience something different. The slope tilts. Growth accelerates. Stress decreases. Optionality increases. The portfolio starts generating returns that exceed monthly contributions. And one day, without drama, without a lucky trade, they look at their account and realize the machine generates more than their job. That moment doesn't start at $1 million. It starts at $100,000. And how you behave right after determines whether it takes 15 years or never arrives at all. If this changed how you see six figures, subscribe. Not for motivation, for structure. Because in the next video, we break down the behavioral patterns that separate people who plateau at 200K from the ones who quietly reach seven figures. Because $100,000 isn't where you made it, it's where the real test begins.